So the chart on the right shows the total domestic and foreign bonds that were listed going into the 1931 high for bonds listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And you can see from the value of those bonds that it's just climbed to an astonishing value and then just crashed in just 2 years. And that was the Great Depression sovereign debt default crisis that played out between 1931 and 32, where effectively every country in the world went bankrupt with their sovereign debt. There were two exceptions. The United States, which had a balanced budget, did not default, and France did not default initially, but defaulted a few years later. Now, during this period, um, governments were completely ineffectual in coming up with solutions. In his memoirs, Herbert Hoover wrote that during this new stage of the Depression, the refugee gold and the foreign government reserve deposits were constantly driven by fear hither and yon all over the world. We were to see currencies demoralized and governments embarrassed as fear drove the gold from one country to another. In fact, there was a massive gold and short-term credit which behaved like a loose cannon on the deck of the world in a tempest-tossed era. So, I mean, I think what Hoover's saying here is really important, and that is that in the middle of a crisis, people depend on government coming up with a solution, and that would be like, asking the government to come up with a solution in the middle of a hurricane or a tsunami. Some things are just way beyond the scope of government control, and with the economy being one of those, especially an economy in a crisis. So history does repeat, but not exactly, and the conditions are now uh, gaining more traction for a repeat of the 1931-32 cycle pattern. 2026 is 11 intervals of 8.6 years. So anytime after 2026 that sovereign debt defaults begin, we will be on our way to another crisis, but this one involving government. Thanks for listening.